ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय जन्माद्यस्य यतो अन्वयादितरतश्च अर्थेषु अभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः. We now enter the 78th chapter of the 10th Skandha of Bhagavatam. We saw how Shalva, the friend of Shishupala, was killed. Now there is one more friend of Shishupala called Dantavaktra. He is in fact none other than the Vijaya of Jaya and Vijaya. So we saw how Jaya and Vijaya first came as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, then as Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and then finally as Shishupala and Dantavaktra. Shishupala has already been killed, and now his friend Dantavaktra, who's also a friend of Shalva and Poundraka, all of these evil characters, they were all together. So Dantavaktra, being a friend of all of them, he came to avenge the death of his friend, and he chose to come alone. In fact, he didn't even bring any army. Full of rage, he thought he will just engage directly with Krishna, mano a mano, and therefore he came alone with his huge mace and challenged Krishna for a fight. So after Krishna had killed Shalva, even before he could turn back, there was Dantavaktra who had come alone, and seeing Krishna there, he charged at him and he yelled, "I am lucky that I have found you, Krishna. I have here come to avenge the death of all my friends. So, because you have killed my friends, I seek your death right now. I am going to make short work of you with my mace. You are, though, my relation, so because he is a distant cousin, Dantavaktra, just as Shishupala is also. But this Dantavaktra says, even though you are a relation of mine, you are like a disease in one's own body, and therefore I am going to get rid of you and discharge my debt to my friends. So this is how he speaks in a nasty way. Krishna, of course, smiles and gets down from his chariot, bringing his mace also with him, because Dantavaktra has come with his mace. And Dantavaktra tries to launch his mace on Krishna, but Krishna simply takes his mace, which is called Kaumodaki, and strikes such a severe blow on Dantavaktra's chest that with one blow, Dantavaktra's heart is split, and vomiting blood through the mouth, Dantavaktra fell down dead. His hair is disheveled, his arms and legs are outstretched, and he is fallen dead on the ground right there. But the amazing thing is, just as it happened with Shishupala, a subtle ray of light came out of the body of Dantavaktra and merged into the body of Krishna. So just because, as said, he is part of Jaya and Vijaya, he is eternally associated with the Lord. Because he had to come down to enact this Leela for Krishna to kill him, he had to take on this role of a evil king. And once this is over, he went back to his home, which is Vaikunta, the eternal abode. So Dantavaktra was thus killed as well as liberated. But then he had a brother Vidhuratha, and this Vidhuratha also had great rage, and hearing that his brother has been killed, he came with a sword and he wanted to rush to Krishna to kill him, but Krishna simply, effortlessly sent a Sudarshana Chakra, which lopped off the head of Viduratha. And therefore Viduratha also fell dead instantly. Thus all these evil characters, Shalva, Dantavaktra, Viduratha, before that Shishupala, were all killed effortlessly by Krishna. And therefore Shukabrahma Rishi says that the master of yoga, the almighty ruler of the universe, Krishna, effortlessly wins all battles and destroys evil. Evam Yogeshwara Krishno Bhagavan Jagadishwaraha Jayati iti saha. He always removes evil. Then we switch to Balaram now, because Balaram, meanwhile, heard of the battle that is brewing between Pandavas and Kauravas. So, some years have rolled by, and now the Pandavas have come back. So, after the incidents of Indraprastha, where we saw Duryodhana was humiliated, various incidents happen which are related in Mahabharata, which are not mentioned here, but they have all transpired, wherein there was a gambling match in which the Pandavas were cheated, and then their kingdom was taken away, and they were sent to the forest. And then, after their stay in the forest, they came back because they were told that they'll be given the kingdom back. But when they came back, they were denied anything, and therefore they were left with no choice. They even sent Krishna himself as their messenger, and yet Duryodhana wouldn't listen, and therefore the only option left was war, and therefore war was about to break out. So when this all had transpired, Balaram decided to remain neutral, because Balaram always had a soft spot for Duryodhana, because Duryodhana was his own student in various arts such as fighting with the mace and so on. But Balaram also knows that the Pandavas are the righteous ones. Therefore, he didn't want to engage in this war, unlike Krishna. So he remained neutral. So he decided that he will simply leave Dwaraka on a pilgrimage rather than be involved in any of these affairs. So he leaves on a great pilgrimage. So he goes to this place called Prabhasa, which is near Dwaraka first, to take a plunge in the sea there. And then he gifts many there, and then he feeds the people there, and so on. Then he proceeds on this beautiful pilgrimage along the banks of Saraswati. Saraswati is a river that has dried up, that was flowing from the Himalayas down to the west coast of Bharat. So he was going upward toward the source of Saraswati. He was going north. So he essentially makes a circumambulation of the entire land of Bharat. So he starts from Gujarat on the west coast, and he goes up north, tracing the way Saraswati is flowing, the opposite way that is, and then till the point where Saraswati flows east up there, where it can then he goes thereby to the banks of Jamuna and Ganga, and then he comes upon Naimisharanya. Naimisharanya is the place, as we may recall, where the entire Bhagavatam started. So Naimisharanya is the place where there was a huge congregation of rishis headed by Shaunaka, who were addressed by Suta Maharishi, and he narrated the entire Bhagavatam, which is still going on, wherein he, because he was present when Shuka Brahma Rishi narrated it to Parikshit, he listened to the whole thing, he took it by heart, and he is narrating the dialogue between Shuka Brahman and Parikshit in Naimisharanyam. So that's the narration that actually covers the entire Bhagavatam. So in the very same Naimisharanya, Balaram went, and there was a different congregation going on there, a satsang. And interestingly, that satsang was headed by Suta Maharishi's father, Romaharshana. And we'll see how these two congregations are connected, because Romaharshana is a disciple of Vyasa, who was specifically taught by Vyasa on Itihasas and Puranas. And therefore, he was given the high seat to instruct the sages on Itihasas and Puranas, even though he didn't have the standing to teach so, because he was not qualified by his pedigree to teach the Brahmanas there. And yet, because he was taught by Vyasa and the sages themselves requested him to teach them, he was sitting on the high seat. So when Balaram went there, every sage there, they offered respect to him. Some of them who were senior, they blessed him, and thus everybody worshipped him according to their position. But Romaharshana alone did not get up from his seat, because he was seated on the elevated platform of the speaker, of the teacher of that congregation. But Balaram did not find this correct behavior. he thought this was disrespectful of Romaharshana, especially because he has learned from Vyasa, who is the great teacher from whom he has learned all books on Dharma, Itihasas, Puranas. Balaram thought he cannot plead ignorance, but he is acting arrogant and he is pretending to be a learned man, but in reality, he is only acting like he is learned. And such people who are acting righteous are dangerous than, or more dangerous than even the unrighteous. And therefore, deciding so, Balaram instantly kills Romaharshana because Balaram doesn't brook disrespect and, more importantly, pretentiousness as if one is learned or one is righteous. After Balaram kills Romaharshana, the sages there tell him that perhaps we have made a mistake here because we only asked Romaharshana to take the elevated seat to instruct us, and perhaps that's why he didn't get up, and therefore this may not be quite appropriate to have killed Romaharshana because he was seated on the high seat according to our own request. It is like killing our own teacher, and therefore please set an example by doing some atonement for this. So Balaram thinks of it and he says, okay, I'll do one thing. I can even bring him back to life by my yoga maya, but then he is destined to die right now. That's why it happened this way. Therefore, let me give a different benediction. The Vedas declare that one's son is non different from oneself. So, in the place of Romaharshana, soon his son will come, who will be Suta Maharishi, and who will come here to the same place, Naimisharanya, and he will expound the greatest Purana to a great congregation of rishis who will all assemble in this very place. And this Suta, the son of Romaharshana, will be endowed with long life, energy, and soundness. He will have great memory, he will have great intellect, and he will narrate the entire Purana, the greatest of all Puranas, which is Bhagavatam, to all the rishis here. So this makes everyone happy. And then furthermore, they request Balaram. They say there is a demon called Balvala who comes on every full moon and new moon day and defiles the sanctity of our gathering by throwing all kinds of filthy substances into the sacrificial fire and so on. So, if you can get rid of him, that will be a great help to us. Also, we request you to set an example for the whole world by doing 12 months of pilgrimage for having killed this Romaharshana, so that everybody will know that one can visit all these holy places if one has committed any mistake, and these holy places have the capacity to sanctify one. So Balaram agrees to the sage's request and he proceeds. With this chapter ends and we enter the 79th chapter. And in fact, before Balaram proceeds, there is the short encounter with Balvala that is described, because as we saw, the Rishi said, before you proceed, first get rid of this Balvala. So he just waited for a few days for the next full moon day to come, when this Balvala surely showed up, and he had very ugly features and he was very gigantic looking and he was very nasty, and he started doing his defiling of the sacrificial fire. But as he started to go about doing that, Balaram instantly took his plow and dragged him from the air down to earth and knocked him so hard that with no way of escaping, he fell on the ground. And then with the hard knock of Balaram being the embodiment of strength, with one hit his head split open, and uttering a helpless cry, he fell like a mountain peak falling down, and he just simply died. So this way Balvala was effortlessly killed by Balaram, and all the sages of Naimisharanya blessed Balaram and sprinkled holy waters on him and blessed him from their own way. And then Balaram proceeded on his sacred pilgrimage as he was told to go for 12 months. And this is a beautiful way to see all the places being mentioned also. So Balaram takes a beautiful route. From there, he first proceeds further east to what is called Purvanchal, or present day of eastern Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, where he goes to the place where Kaushiki river flows and then Sarayu river flows. Then from there he comes to Prayag, and Prayag, of course, is the place where Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati meet. There he takes a dip in Prayag. Then he takes a dip in the various rivers flowing in that region, Gomati, Gandaki, Vipasha, Sona, and so on. And finally, he visits Gaya, which is very famous for doing Shraddha, that is, ceremonies for the departed. So he does that there for his forefathers. Then he heads south now. He visits the Mahendra hill where Parashuram resides and he offers his obeisances to him. Then he comes further south to Godavari, and then Vena, which is the Krishna river of today, and Pampa lake. And then he comes further south and he visits a shrine of Kartikeya and also Sri Shaila, which is the famous shrine of Shiva. And from there, very beautifully, it's listed that he goes to Tirupati, which is called the Venkata mountain. So it says, Skandam Drishtva Yayau Rama Sri Shailam Girishalayam Dravideshu Mahapunyam Drashtva Adrim Venkatam Prabhu. So first he goes to Skandam. So he sees a shrine of Lord Kartikeya or Skandha. Then he goes to Sri Shailam, which is the abode of Shiva, Girishalayam. Then he comes further south to the land of Dravida, which is the land where Tirupati or the Venkatachalapati temple, the most famous temple, is there. So it says Dravideshu Mahapunyam Drishtva Adrim Venkatam Prabhu. So he visits this great shrine of Venkatachalapati. Then he goes further south to Kanchipuram. And then from there he goes to the sacred shrine of Srirangam. It says Srirangakya Mahapunyam Yatra Sannihito Harihi. This is another most famous shrine in Tamil Nadu, where there is the most wonderful reclining form of Narayana as Sri Ranganatha. So he visits the sacred shrine of Sri Ranga. Then he goes to Rishabha mountain and then he comes to Madurai, which is called Southern Mathura. He says, Rishabhadrim Hare Kshetram Dakshina Mathura Tatha. Mathura is the Dakshina Mathura means the southern Mathura, which is Madurai. Then he goes to Rameshwaram, Samudram Setum Agaman Mahapataka Nashanam. So he comes to Ramasetu. So this is the place where Ram built a bridge to go from Bharat to Lanka. So he comes to this Ram Setu, which is the place where all sins are purged, it is said. So he takes a dip in the river or in the sea at Rameshwaram. Then after that he goes and he also visits the banks of Kritamala river, which is Vaigai, and Tamraparani, which are all flowing in the southern portion of Bharat in Tamil Nadu. Then he finally goes to the very southern tip. First he takes darshan of Agastya, the great sage who resides there in those mountains. And then he goes to the southern tip, Kanyakumari. It says, Dakshinam Tatra Kanyakyam Durgam Devim Dadarshasah. He visits the Kanyakumari shrine of Mother Durga. Then he goes up north now on the west coast, going first to Kerala, Anantashayana. This is the famous Anantapadma Swami temple in Trivandrum or Thiruvananthapuram today. And then he goes further along the coast to Gokarna, which is in Karnataka, present day Karnataka, which is again a great shrine for Shiva. Gokarnakyam Shiva Kshetram Sanidhyam Yatra Dhurjatehe. So he goes to the place which is sacred to Shiva, Gokarna, and then he goes through various rivers, enters the Dandaka forest, comes to the banks of Narmada, the sacred river, goes to the city Mahishmati, and then finally, doing a full circle, he comes back to Gujarat. And then there he learns that the war is now almost over all the Kauravas have practically died and the war is in its last throw. So he instantly departs again to Kurukshetra, where the war is almost ending. So as we can see, he has done a full circle, starting from Dwaraka, going north, then east, then south, then again back up to west. And now again he goes up to Kurukshetra because he is keen to stop the war. And he finds that the last day of battle is going on between Bhima and Duryodhana. His favorite Duryodhana is fighting, and Bhima is, of course, the righteous prince. And so he doesn't want that battle to continue. They are engaged in a single one-on-one combat with their maces. So when Balaram reaches that spot where the final battle is going on, after all the other warriors are killed, only one battle remains, and everyone is watching this battle. Yudhishthira himself, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadeva, and accompanied by Bhagavan Sri Krishna. They are all watching this epic fight between Duryodhana and Bhima, and they are both engaged in a very fierce battle with great rage. But Balaram goes there and he addresses both of them and he says, "You both ought to stop this fight because you both are equally skillful and nobody is going to win this battle." But of course, they are not ready to listen because they are both full of rage by now. They are caught in the battle, and therefore Balaram simply leaves that place, realizing that they are destined to continue this. And of course, this battle ends with Bhim winning because, as Balaram rightly said, they are both equally valorous, that neither of them could win. But Krishna, of course, helps Bhima to win by a subtle sign that there is one weak spot of Duryodhan, which is his thighs. And that is the spot that Krishna indicates to Bhima by sign, and Bhima hits him there, and thereby Duryodhana is killed. But meanwhile, Balaram, realizing that they are destined to continue this battle, he comes back to Dwaraka and he is welcomed by Ugrasena and all the elders. Then he decides to go to Naimisharanya again, the same place where he first went, in order to do some sacrifices. Naimisharanya is a very sacred place for doing any kind of yajna. So he decides that since there is so much killing that has happened, all the Kauravas have killed, most of the Pandava army is killed, only very few are remaining. So for the ongoing peace going forward, he engages in sacrifices. So it is said here that even though all sacrifices are part and parcel of Balaram, in order to set an example for the world, he did elaborate sacrifices, yajnas in Naimisharanya. And not only that, the sages that were assembled there, he imparted them the highest wisdom as well, that the whole universe is simply the expansion of the Supreme Being who is present in the hearts of all. It says, Tebhyo Vishuddha Vijnanam Bhagavan Vyatarad Vibhuhu Yena Eva Atman Yado Vishwam Atmanam Vishwagam Viduhu. So that is to say that the sages were able to realize that the whole universe was simply an expansion of the Supreme Being, and therefore the whole universe is present within the Supreme Being, and it is the Supreme Being who is the true self of all as well, who pervades the whole universe. And after imparting this highest wisdom and performing all sacrifices, he performed the concluding ablutions and then put on new clothes, and he shone like the new moon, or the full moon rather. And then he, after finishing all these sacrifices, departed from Naimisharanya. So thus Shukabrahma Rishi has given a detailed account of the pilgrimage of Balaram, and thereby also glorifying Balaram, because Balaram is the infinite Lord himself, Ananta, who is incomprehensible and who has taken on this human form only for Leela. And therefore Shuka Brahmam concludes this chapter by saying that one who contemplates upon Balaram and his infinite prowess is always blessed and most dear to the Lord. says Anantasya Aprameyasya Maya Martyasya Santihi. So Anantasya means of the infinite Lord, Aprameyasya, immeasurable. Yo Anusmaret Ramasya Karmani Adbhuta Karmanaha. The one who remembers Rama, here Ram refers to Balaram, the one who remembers the great deeds of Balaram, Sayam Pratar Anantasya Vishnosa Dayito Bhavet. One who remembers him day and evening, he is ever dear to the Supreme Lord Vishnu. And with this chapter ends and the wonderful narration of the Leelas of Balaram ends. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.